Welcome to Solutions with Courtney Anderson. I am Courtney Anderson. Thank you for joining me today. As always, I encourage you to go to CourtneyAnderson.com to share any ideas, show topics, suggestions, feedback, anything that's on your mind. So today we have one of our financial fierceness series shows. And of course, Financial Fierceness series is all about us and our money. I love it. We're talking about moolah, dollars, making bank. Wow, I sound like the out of touch, um, mature lady that I am. The reality, though, is having control over our money is a healthy part of our lives, and it's imperative to us having the ability to make really good choices and to surpass our goals. Having stress and anxiety and fear and apprehension surrounding money, which is almost always based on not having enough, having that mitigated or even eliminated does so much to free up our lives. In terms of our time, in terms of our emotional health, stability is awesome. So today in our financial fierceness series, where we're focused always on being proactive, our specific show topic is never have only one income stream. Diversify! Parentheses, baskets of money. Never have only one income stream. Diversify! Baskets of money. So here we are talking about something that is one of my favorite concepts in life. It certainly is one of my favorite concepts when we talk about our financial fierceness, which is us controlling our money and our money is not controlling us. The idea here is that we're never going to be dependent on only one way to support ourselves. Diversification is the concept that I just love. I believe in diversification of skills, diversification of adventure, diversification of friends, diversification of experiences, diversification of education. I just believe in it in general, right? It's all about this idea that you want to have a multitude, a diversity, right? Of experience, of options. One of my favorite concepts that we discuss in all of the programs is choice. I just love talking about choices. And if I have a plan where I'm diversified, I'm more likely, right? It's more probable that I'm going to have more choices. And it's not a guarantee. And as we talk about in I was going to say almost everything, but I honestly think everything that we've ever discussed or shared or anything, I mean, there are no guarantees, right? I mean, the world could end in the next few minutes. I mean, I don't have control over if a meteor hits the planet or, who knows what. Absent things that are way beyond my control, diversification is just part of our overall strategic thinking and planning ahead to help us surpass our goals. And the whole idea here is if you have only one option for your financial income, then it puts you at a really high risk if something happens to that one option. Ideally, we want to have more than one option. So the show topic says never have, and I usually don't like absolutes. We know that, right? Absolutes all never. But I'm using one here because I really believe fervently in this. Never have only one income stream. Now, this is interesting because it relates a little bit to tangentially to a program we did a while ago about always have the ability to support yourself financially. And in that, I argued that you want to have the ability to support yourself financially. So it doesn't mean that you have to be, working outside the home or anything of that nature at this moment. It might be that you're in a situation where relatives or loved ones or friends are supporting you, and that's fine. I just argued that you need to have the ability, if something happens, to be able to support yourself. So maybe you have some job skills or some professional certifications or something so that if something happens, right, the people that you're dependent on aren't able to continue to support you, that you're able to step up and support yourself and you're confident, you know how to do it, you've done it before, or at least you know what to do to get started. It's the same thing here. I'm not saying that you need to go out automatically and have if you only have one income stream, by the end of the next 4 or 5 days, you need to have 5 income streams. It's not realistic. And my argument simply is that you need to be prepared to have more than one income stream so that if something happens, like we talked about a few minutes ago, right? The meteor could hit the planet. We don't know. But something could happen to other people that you're dependent on. Something could happen to other businesses, to the government agency that you're dependent on, to the contract that you're dependent on. Who knows? The idea is to do everything we can to be proactive so that when something happens that's a surprise, surprise, our business is relocating and we're not bringing you, or surprise, there's a government shutdown, or surprise, we've gone out of business, or surprise. I mean, who knows, right? Ideally, you want to be in a situation where when the surprise happens, of course you're surprised, but you're not devastated. You're not stressed out because you have other options either in existence or other options that you have set up as contingency plans, right? If something happens that's a surprise, I've got my contingency plan, I'm ready to go. That's what I'm talking about. So let's give some examples. One of the things that I believe in, just as a avowed and open and honest nerd and lover of all things knowledge based, is diversification of your skills, right? So, in other words, instead of going and saying, I'm going to go be the best um, hairstylist that I can be, right? So you go and you go to cosmetology school and you get your license and you're a hairstylist. Awesome. My argument is you should also have some other skills in case something happens. Where maybe you can't stand for a while because you've maybe been in an accident, so you're not going to be able to perform your cosmetology work. You need to have some other skills you can fall back on so you can be diversified and ready to go if for some reason you're not able to do your primary skill or the skill that you enjoy the most. So you may have a real estate license on the side that you might not even really use, but you just sort of keep current. And then if something happens and you're unable to do cosmetology, right? Uh-oh, well, I got my real estate license ready to rock and roll. And boom, you're out there ready to go. You're not standing for long periods. Maybe you're sitting in your office or you're driving around looking at houses with your clients, but you're moving. You're getting things done. For me, I am a licensed attorney. So here's an anecdote. And even though I don't practice full time, so that means I'm not as I was years ago in the 1990s, when I opened my law firm, that was my primary job. I mean, I was there every day, all night with my staff, paralegal, administrative, working with my clients, going to court. I mean, that's what I did. I don't do that full time right now because obviously I'm doing these programs and consulting and teaching and writing, speaking. But I still do practice law part time, right? So I certainly have legal services that I provide, and I do things through my online firm, and I also keep my license. I actually had a conversation with somebody pretty recently who's a lawyer, and it's probably in their later middle age, so probably I think in their 60s, and went to law school, which is a lot of work. In the United States, to become a lawyer, it requires at least a minimum of 7 years of college. You have to at least have an undergrad degree, and then you have to go to an additional 3 years of law school. And then it's incredibly um, time consuming and stressful. You have to pass very, very intense examinations. You also have to be able to pass a background examination by a bar to be admitted as a lawyer. It's 7 years plus some incredibly expensive and time consuming and challenging tests and passing investigation just to get the license, right? So when you go through all that hassle, in my mind, then keep it. Keep it current. All you have to do is take some continuing classes every year, and this is similar for real estate, most professional licenses, cosmetology, right? You have to pay some fees to the government entity that licenses you usually annually or somewhere near that, and then you have to take some, continuing education at some point. But why not do that? Because even if you're not doing that job right now, you never know when you'll need that license. So I was talking to this person relatively recently who had been a lawyer, but had not paid their fees to keep their license current. And it's not that much. I mean, it's, whatever. I don't know. It varies across states, but somewhere around a couple $100 a year. Didn't pay that to keep their license. And so now, even though they went to law school, actually went to more than that, I believe they went to college for about 10 years because they have other degrees too. They're unable to practice law. They can't even get a temporary part-time job as a lawyer because they're not licensed anywhere. Another anecdote, one of the reasons I believe in this and one of my role models, who I do talk about in a lot of programs, I was fortunate to have two very powerful grandmothers. I'm not, if you had known them and then you met me, you'd understand, I think, a lot of how I operate in the world, because they were much more assertive and vibrant and brilliant, certainly, than I am. But they were both um, college graduates and brilliant women. One of my grandmothers had run a family business for a long, long, long time, and it was a funeral home. And so she had actually inherited this from other family members. So even though she'd gone to college for other things, not to be in the funeral business, and she had other interests, and she ran the family business for a really long time, she had, before all of this, right before she'd even finished college, she'd gone to earn her cosmetology degree, so she could be a professional hairstylist and beautician, and she kept that for decades. I don't even know how many. I mean, she, kept it for, I don't know, 30, 40, 50 years. And she didn't use it. She didn't have a job where she worked as a cosmetologist, because she had, you know, was a teacher, and then she ran this family business. Um, she invested in real estate. But the thing that was amazing is that she talked to me about this, and she's like, I keep it because you never know if you need it. Right. And I get that. And it's a lesson of diversification. You never know if you'll need it. Some people and some families and some cultures refer to these as sort of your fallback plans. Your option B, which, or option C. What are you going to do? It never hurts you to have skills you can sort of pull out of a drawer. They might be rusty. You might not use them that much, but you know how to do it. And push comes to shove, you can go out and do it. So even if you don't have a professional license like a beautician or a attorney or a CPA, how about get a driver's license if you're in a part of the world where you can? That's a skill where it sounds like that's not much. Yeah, it is. Because there are people, certainly I've worked with, especially people whose life is in a lot of transition, right? Maybe they were incarcerated, maybe they've, been suffering from some, severe issues. When you go to rebuild your life and you live in a part of the world, in many parts of certainly the United States, are not set up for public transport to provide you opportunities to get to work, to get to shopping. It's just not how the cities are laid out. Without a vehicle, it's hard to get things done. And here's another thing. Having a driver's license, a valid driver's license, is another one of these sort of certification licenses you can make money on. One of the things I did when I was younger, which I've talked about in some other programs, and I actually enjoyed to a relative, yeah, I actually did enjoy, was I worked in the fast food industry, specifically as a food delivery driver. Most often as a pizza delivery driver. So people would call a pizza restaurant and order, whatever, pizza and some soda. And then I worked at the restaurant, and I would sometimes take the orders, and then mostly I would just take, when the pizza was made and it was then ready to go, I would just drive it to the people's house, give them their food to get the money, and then go to the next house. I was a delivery driver. And one of the things I think it's important to keep even just a driver's license, because that's another way to make money. If push comes to shove, I always say this, and to myself and sometimes other people, and they look at me like I'm silly. If I need to, even though I haven't done it now and it's been a really long time, but I could do it. I have my driver's license, which I use, obviously for other things to get around, but I could go out and be a delivery driver. I know how to do it. I've done it. I keep that door open. And that's the kind of thing that if I have to, I could do it. Because I love experiences and diversification in life, I have lots of jobs that I did that I feel like if I had to, I could go back. I'm not saying I was great at them. I'm not saying that I'm the best. I understand my skills would be, weak, but I could do it, right? So delivery driving, or any type of driving, actually. Um, I worked in the food industry as a waitress. I could do that. I was a bartender. Now, I do not have my current bartender license, but that's something now that I mentioned and I'm thinking about. And now a lot of people would say, what are you talking about? This doesn't make any sense, right? Like you have all these other things you do. This is silly. It's not silly. There's a couple of reasons. One, you never know what the future holds, and it's always good, A, to have plan B, C, D, E, F, and G. The other thing is, I know in my moments of total anxiety and fear, worst case scenario, if everything falls apart, I can do one of these jobs because there are a lot of different places that have opportunities for waitressing or bartending. And it gives me some comfort to know that I could take care of myself and I wouldn't be dependent on just the things I do now professionally. When we talk about having more than one income stream, ideally what you would want to do as you move forward, and we have other programs about not just focusing on having good income and a good job and about building to financial independence. Financial independence is what it sounds like. I'm independent. I support me. Just like if you've left your family where you grew up, and you're out on your own as an adult, when you're out and you're independent and you're paying your way in the world, you're independent. You're taking care of yourself. It's the same thing with your financially independent goal. When you meet and surpass that goal, the idea is that you're taking care of your finances. And when you get to a certain point and when you don't have any debt and you have lots of different income coming in from your investments, from your assets, then at a certain point, the anxiety lessens about worst case scenario, what happens, because you have more money coming in constantly than you're spending. You keep saving more money. You've got interest that's compounding on your money, and you have things that are appreciating in value that are, again, either there could be stocks, there could be real estate. The idea is at some point, no bills, money that you have that's liquid that you could immediately grab if you needed. Liquid, of course, is what it sounds like. Like liquid, it's moving, it's rushing. You can reach out and grab it. And you've got other things if you really needed to. You could sell, whether it's stock or real estate or whatever, and then you'll have more money than you need, right? And at some point, it actually tips over, and you get into this other weird scenario where you have way more money than you need, and then you start to wonder, well, what am I going to do with all this? Which is a whole different situation, and we do programs on, certainly. So the idea here, though, is if you're somebody and you have one income, let's just say it's a job, right? So you're an employee and you have one income, and you doesn't matter what it is. Let's say you're working in a nice office, and something happens, right? There's an earthquake, or the place goes out of business. Now your one income is gone, and you don't have any other money. So instead of going from, okay, I had that amount of money, and then my other, investments or income, now I only have one income, and I went from, let's say I made $3,000 a month. Now I've gone from $3,000 a month to $0 a month. That's really hard to adjust to. Even when you're debt free, you still have costs. I mean, you still have to get food. You're still going to have utilities. You're still going to have to pay for property that you own, property taxes. So you're going to have costs. You can't go to zero with no income at all because you still have bills you have to pay, even if you're debt free, right? So you don't want to be in that position where, oh, goodness gracious, I had all of my eggs in one basket. That basket was that one income, that one job. Now it's gone, and I don't have another plan. A lot of people in those situations, because they don't have any other income and they didn't have another plan and there isn't anything else they can sell, then if you qualify, which is not a guarantee, many people may qualify for government assistance, unemployment benefits. But even if you qualify for those, in most parts of the world, there's a limit. In some parts of the world, there's a really strict limit. In the United States, and it depends. The politicians change it all the time, right? And it also depends on what state you live in and how much money you made at your job. And I mean, there's all these rules. And so there are some benefits. Worst case scenario, if you totally have no money and you need to eat, there are certainly charitable organizations and food pantries where you can just not, we don't want people, people don't starve, but your world can unravel really quickly. And if you built everything in your life around your one income, making $3,000, and that, you had a place that you lived and you had a vehicle, if you lived in a part of the world where you needed one, and then you went to $0, you're not going to make it very long without having to totally change everything. You can't afford to keep your vehicle because you can't pay for the vehicle, the gas, the registration, the insurance. You just can't because you don't have any income. So you have to, sell that or let that go. And then you can't pay your rent. So you're going to have to move in with a relative. This is because you were dependent on one income stream. My argument is you need to not do that long term. Now, of course, in today, you're not going to be able to jump up today and go out in 2 or 3 days and get all these different income streams. It's not going to happen magically. But what you want to do, like we always talk about, is have a strategy and a plan. What's the goal? Where are you going with this? My argument is financial independence. Independent from what? Independent from financial stress disruption. Independent from financial ruin. Because I'm living in a frugal manner. Ideally, I'm debt free. Of course, some debt, I have other programs, I do encourage strongly that you're going to earn as much education as you can. So if the only way to do that is to borrow money, then I do encourage that because education knowledge is the key, and education should relate to skills, which should relate to opportunity economically. I also do encourage, depending on where you are in the situation, that if you can buy in a reasonable market real estate, then a mortgage is not a bad idea necessarily. I don't necessarily believe in any other debt, and we do other programs on that. But you're moving toward the idea that you're not worried about money. Financial independence is what it sounds like. I'm not worried about money. I've got money coming in from my different investments and interest, and I've got money saved, and it's nice. That's the goal. How do you get there? You got to be diversified. If you have one job skill, okay, so let's talk about my happy time I reflected on being a delivery driver, which is absolutely true. I loved that job because unlike being the waitress in the restaurant where you're just in there the whole shift and you're dealing with the people constantly, and there's a lot of memory work to being a waitress too, right? Like, what soda the person ordered, and you got to watch and see if they need more refills, and it's hard work. And a great waitress in some parts of the world in a fine dining establishment can do very well economically. I'm based in Las Vegas, and there are many, literally world class eateries where people who work there can earn very nice income. But that's an anomaly, right? That's not the average. That's not the. I was working in fast food chain restaurants. I wasn't making much money. I actually made more money delivering pizza because I made a different hourly wage, and then I also got tips too. So the reason I like driving the car is because it got me out of the restaurant, and I got to be in my own car, listen to music, look around the neighborhood or whatever. I enjoyed that. So here's the deal though. What if somebody's their entire skills are built around driving? What if they're a commercial truck driver or a bus driver, or they're an excellent, they're a limo driver, and their job is built on driving. Now we have technology that's coming along, which I'm just on a personal aside actually really excited about potentially personally. The robotic, automatic, autonomous vehicle, which is a car that is like a computer, drives itself. So the fantasy I have, which I don't have any proof this is what it will be like, and these are real vehicles that are being tested and driven right now in several parts of the world, and in the United States and several states it's already legal to drive the vehicles. Google is one of the big companies that's out with the technology to get this to market ideally. But ideally the idea is once this technology is up to speed, right? You'll go and you'll get in your vehicle and you'll turn on the computer and say, I don't know, take me to whatever address, and then the car is what it sounds like. It's autonomous, it's self-driving, right? It'll take itself there. I'm not driving at all. Now there's a lot of exciting stuff about litigation, who's responsible if there's an accident, but I don't really like driving is the honest truth. I find it stressful. I didn't mind it when I was pizza delivery driving, but normally that was a long time ago. So most of the time when I drive now, there's people who cut me off, they don't signal, whatever. I find it to be stressful. If I could but I like riding in cars. I do. I like riding in them. I think it's relaxing to ride in the car. I just don't like the driving part. So if you have the computer drive the car, and assuming that the fantasy is close to reality, and and it's safe, and it's not dealing with being, drunk or texting or whatever, then lives are saved and the convenience factor will be awesome from my perspective. Here's the reality though. What if that's your job? What if you're a commercial, like I said, bus driver, truck driver, taxi driver, limo service, pizza delivery driver? What's going to happen to all these jobs if that technology does meet the expectations that some people have? At some point, not overnight, it's not going to happen like, on Monday they release the autonomous car and on Tuesday everybody's out of a job. But over time, over time, if it works, of course it'll be safer and better for businesses, right? I don't have to run the risk of my driver being sleepy or distracted or texting or inebriated. I don't have to run the insurance costs of that. And as the costs come down with the technology, eventually, if it works, it'll be cheaper and more cost effective. So people who have that job skill, that was their plan, need to have a plan B, because they could be the greatest driver ever, but if those jobs don't exist anymore, they don't exist anymore. And this is what you see across all sectors of the economy, from a lot of low wage jobs to manufacturing to white collar offshoring of jobs. So a lot of lawyers and people with a ton of education have been surprised, which we talked about earlier, right? Where they had one skill, right? And the technology changed where you don't need to hire a lawyer to sit in the United States for a certain amount of money. You can hire a lawyer from another part of the world that may be low cost, that can work virtually. And people are doing that. And so there are less jobs. So what do? Do you just sit somewhere and give up and say, "Oh, I give up. I had one income stream or I had one job skill and now that job skill has changed or it's relocated or nobody even uses it anymore and I just sit somewhere and cry?" No. We were proactive to begin with. That's the whole purpose of this program, is that you don't only have that one income stream. You want to either have the ability to have other income streams with other jobs that you've done, things that you've learned how to do over time. If you have certifications or licenses, I strongly suggest keep them current. Then, if something changes, you're ready to move. You're not happy about it necessarily, but life is. I saw a show the other day about people who live, to the 100-year mark. And because of, again, technology and science and all the improvements, some argue they're not improvements, but the changes, at least in society, we have people living longer. So if you're someone that's going to, let's say that you live to be 115. Even if you're, 60, you have 55 more years of life left. That's a lot of time to fill. So there's no reason for you to only have one skill or one thing that you know how to do, unless if you have one thing you know how to do, you enjoy it, you make more money than you would need, you're happy, and there never is a reason for you to do anything else, well, fine. I'm not saying you have to use it. I'm saying have it in your back pocket if something changes. And remember, the longer we live, then that's a lot of years to fill. It made sense to retire at 65 when the average life expectancy, was 66 or something, because most people, that's kind of the end of life. It doesn't make sense to retire and sit around at 60 if you're going to live another 50 years. It's kind of like you're not even anywhere near retirement, because come on. And what I mean by that is, if you're this great show I saw, the people in the show were 100 years, but they were really in great physical and mental condition. They were driving and working and volunteering and dating and dancing. I mean, like, hey, my point is, you don't know how much time you have and there's a potential that you're gonna have a lot of time. Having a diversified income stream is a great idea. What do you need to do? What are the action items? First of all, you need to look at your skills. Everything from a driver's license to some sort of certification. Can you type? Do you speak other languages? These are all things that if you needed to, you can whip out and whip out of your drawer of skills and use. If you have more than one language, you could be a translator if you need to. If you're a great you have natural skills as an artist. If you had to, you could do that. If you're good at fixing things, if push comes to shove, you could be a handy person and go around and sell your services fixing things. You need to have curiosity about the world. We do so many programs about that. It just makes it more exciting and interesting, and why not? There's no need to be bored. This is a really interesting planet, and there's so much that you could learn and do. And there's so much you don't know about yourself. Go out and learn some things. Many things that you love and enjoy as a hobby, if you needed to, could also become a job skill, a professional skill. If you're a great cook or baker, you could do that. I mean, honestly, almost anything. So ideally, if you're at the beginning of this process and you're thinking, well, I don't even have one job. Okay, well, get one income stream, but then all along be working on your skills. You don't want to only have like one skill, because then if something happens to that industry or that skill set, then you don't have anything else, and you try to go back and relearn something, you'll be a little bit behind the curve. So skills are everything from language, drawing, cooking, driving, I mean, gardening, like anything, decorating, like, I mean, we could sit here all day and talk about things. As you move forward toward financial independence over time, you are going to want to have more than one income stream. So maybe you'll have a full-time job, then you'll have some investments, maybe you'll have some rental property, maybe you'll have some small businesses on the side. Over time, you are going to build a mixture. And ideally, you again want to do that. Even as a business owner and an entrepreneur, which certainly is something that near and dear to my heart, you don't want to only have one entity that you put everything into that's totally at risk, because if it fails, then what are you going to do? Right? You need to plan ahead and be proactive. Different baskets of money is a nice visual, and it actually is exactly what we're talking about. And that way, if something happens with your job or one of your investments fails or business or something, it's sad that that happened and you're stressed out and maybe you lost some money, but it didn't change your entire life. It didn't throw you from stability into dire poverty at zero income. You don't want to be in a position where you risk everything and you're at a potential of completely zero income without any other skills. And if you're in a position in your life where you don't necessarily know what you want to do, I strongly encourage you to go out and work as many different jobs as you can, just to learn about things. The jobs I did in food service and retail, as a security guard, I worked as a telemarketer. All of these jobs, they're interesting and they taught me skills and they taught me a lot about business and the world and about myself. And there's things I learned that I could use. So get out there in the world, diversify your skills. Over time, diversify your income as you move toward financial independence. Remember, you may be one of these people with the new technology and advances that lives, in your hundreds or beyond. We don't know at this point, and that would give you a lot of time to fill. So you need to have interests and activities, different income, and baskets of money. And then that way, if something goes wrong with one of these things or two of these things, it's stressful and kind of sad, but it's not that big of a deal, and it doesn't destroy your entire life financially. I thank you so much, as always, for taking the time to be part of our program. And if you have any questions or concerns or suggestions, please share them with me at CourtneyAnderson.com. Thanks.